The Florida Panthers now have a commanding 3-0 lead over the Toronto Maple Leafs, doing it in overtime. Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers joins us to discuss how the Panthers have gone on this miraculous playoff run. We have all that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or on your favorite podcatcher. And yes, we are now available on the SXM app of SiriusXM, so make sure you check us out there. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Florida Panthers and maybe the happiest Locked On host in the country right now, Armando Velez. And Armando, up 3-0 on the Toronto Maple Leafs now. A dramatic overtime winner by Sam Reinhart, just 3 minutes and 2 seconds into OT. And how are the Florida Panthers feeling at a moment like this?
They're ecstatic, and the fans in South Florida, they're ecstatic as well. And it was an event-filled weekend in South Florida in general, with the Miami Heat beating the New York Knicks, Formula One being in South Florida as well, and then the Florida Panthers topping it off with the win in overtime and taking a commanding 3-0 lead. And my goodness, Gil, it's just, if you were to tell me that over a week ago, when the Florida Panthers were down 3-1 against the Boston Bruins, that they'd be on a 6-game winning streak in the postseason, which is now the longest winning streak in postseason history for the Florida Panthers. I know they haven't had a big postseason history as far as winning, but it's just been a heck of a ride. And you got to give credit to the goaltender, Sergei Bobrovsky, who now has a .938 save percentage in this series alone. And the coaching, Paul Maurice, has just been great at putting the right pieces together. And the players who I've been critical of in the regular season, like the Aaron Ekblads, they're not making the mistakes in their own zone is in the postseason like they were in the regular season. The Panthers' forecheck is consistently creating mistakes for their opposition. They have 11 goals in the postseason where they score within 5 seconds of a turnover. So that's just an incredible feat that the Florida Panthers have been able to do this whole postseason. And it's just everyone's contributing, especially in the top line. The third line for 2 games in a row has been the story of the game, and limiting the Maple Leafs' chances up the middle too. So they've taken away a lot of their chances.
You mentioned Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, he was benched at the end of the season, did not start in goal in game 1 in the first round against Boston. What has he done so well to turn things around?
His rebound control is just been so much better as well. He's taking advantage of his big frame that he has as far as stopping pucks as well. He's better at track. He's been so much better at tracking them as well. And it was a little discouraging for Sergei Bobrovsky after how he performed in Game 4 of the previous series against Boston. I mean, but that was a little bit, I guess, looking back at it, I know hindsight's a little 2020. And I guess we could see that as a little bit of a warm-up game for Sergei Bobrovsky there. I mean, but of course, the Florida Panthers wouldn't be here, of course, without the Lion King as well, about how he played towards the end of the season. So I don't want to discredit what Alex Lyon has done, but this is why you pay Sergei Bobrovsky $10 million a season. I mean, 2 Vezina trophies. He has the most wins among active players who went undrafted as well. And just and also for Bobrovsky, his stoic mindset as well about not getting too high, not getting too low when things go wrong, And I haven't seen the quotes from the locker room yet, because we're only recording this like 10 minutes after the final buzzer. but I'm sure his mindset is still the same, being up 3-0, that you still got to win one more.
Yeah. Was it a big deal in Game 3 when Ilya Samsonov left the game early due to an injury?
It definitely was. I mean, just a series of strange events in there. I mean, the Florida Panthers are on a breakaway. They get a power play on it. Luke Shen bumps into his own goalie as well, and then the Panthers get a power play out of that. It's just a strange sequence there, all in all. And when you hear that Joseph Woll has only played 7 games for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season, I mean, it's you're kind of licking your chops if you're the Florida Panthers. But I mean, the Cats, they get a whole bunch of offensive zone time either way, regardless of goalie, and they're used to playing Samsonov because they played against him again when they played the Washington Capitals the year before. So, but the fact that it was going up against the backup, you were dominating possession for the first 2 periods. The push for the Toronto Maple Leafs didn't really come until the end of the game as well. And
Right.
also the TNT crew also showed the different attitudes between the Panthers and the Maple Leafs in when presenting the starting lineups. The Panthers were upbeat, loose, while the Toronto Maple Leafs were like all business, no excitement. And honestly, on the ice, I mean, you could tell that the Panthers were the more upbeat team, and all when it came to their game on Sunday night.
Got to ask you about 2 players right now who appear to be making a lot of difference for the Florida Panthers. Obviously, Matthew Tkaczuk. Talk to me about what does he mean to this team right now?
He means everything to this team. I mean, the different personality that he brings, not only off the ice, but the type of guy who's not going to be bullied on the ice and is gonna get in your face as well. He, in the regular season, he was tops in the NHL as passes from behind the net to set up teammates as well. There's a sequence as well towards the end of the second period where he was chopping at Joseph Woll, and the Toronto Maple Leafs took exception of it. He's gonna get in your face, and it's a trickle down effect to the rest of the lineup. Yeah, he didn't score on the night as well, but the fact that he is a guy who the opposition always looks at whenever he does get on the ice just makes everyone better. I mean, Nick Cousins, for example, he was not in the top 6 for really any part of the regular season. He wasn't inserted until the latter part of the, not even the latter part of the season, the latter part of the Boston series as well. And his game has elevated. I mean, Nick Cousins does have playoff experience. He played 17 playoff games with the Vegas Golden Knights. So it's just making the other teams better. And Sam Bennett, he's kind of public enemy number 1 in Toronto right now after his collision with Matthew Nyes and of course that cross check on Michael Bunting in Game 2, but making the other guys better around him, and that's what Matthew Tkaczuk brings.
One other guy I wanted to ask you about, Brandon Montour, not necessarily a household name around the league, but boy, is he being productive in this playoff.
Yeah, Brandon Montour, now with the most points in Florida Panthers history for a defenseman, got 6 goals in 9 games now. And I tell people all the time, if he was playing in a bigger market, he would have had the Josh Morrissey treatment this season for how he's done at the offensive end. And when he was traded for to the Florida Panthers, there was a lot of analytics charts that said that Brandon Montour, that trade for Brandon Montour to the Florida Panthers was not a good trade, and they were able to, and that was 3 deadlines ago for the Panthers, traded him for 3rd round pick, extended him too. And Bill Zito is one happy camper when it comes to that trade for this reason: his contract doesn't expire for another year.
There you go. Armando, why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
They can find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. They can find me on Twitter at MondoMan12. You'll see Florida Panthers tweets, Miami Heat tweets, and not Marlins tweets for now because the focus is solely on the playoff run. But once the summer hits, they will see baseball tweets there as well, and of course golf once the major season kicks off more in the summer.
And the podcast?
Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube. The YouTube subscribers are booming, and we are also on Sirius XM.
All right. Armando, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you as always, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever, Built. You got to try this. If you're like me and you want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, well, Built Bars are healthy and they taste amazing. In fact, they are so good tasting, you won't believe they're good for you. What makes Built Bars taste so good? Well, they're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. And listen to some of these flavors: churro, peanut butter brownie, my personal favorite, the cookies and cream, and the macros are outstanding. Just 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar per bar, but they average a whopping 17 grams of protein. Just go to Built.com. You can have any flavor you like delivered to your door. Or now, if you want one right away, you can head to Walmart or Sam's Club and pick up a box yourself. So head to Built.com for the best tasting protein bar ever. Built Bar, you can thank me later.